Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the concluding event or the last session of the 3-day Global Symposium on Cow-Centric Sustainability. Over the past 3 days, we've had a lot of sessions from many esteemed speakers who've been working in the cow ecosystem for the past many decades. And we've heard different perspectives, especially focusing on cow derivatives such as cow dung and cow urine in agriculture, health, and many other dimensions through these days. And we hope these sessions were inspiring for you as well, since most of you are sustainability enthusiasts, cow enthusiasts, and some of you are farmers. You have your own goshalas. We hope these learnings have been of benefit to you, and also we'd also be sharing the details of the speakers so that you can get in touch with them even post the 3-day event. So without further delay, I'll introduce today's speakers to all of you. So today's evening session, we have two researchers and an entrepreneur joining us from the Netherlands, Itika Gupta ji and Yask Kulshrestha ji. So first, Itika Gupta will be sharing about Dungse. Let me take a moment to introduce her before handing the session over to her. Itika Gupta ji is the founding partner of Studio Carbon and co-founder of Dungse, a material design and innovation company based in the Netherlands and India. With its 16 plus potential bio-based composites made with cow dung, the company is building future building materials with its humble raw material, which is the cow dung. Itika is a systems designer who studied electrical engineering, liberal arts, business, and finally found solace in design. She works at the intersection of design, systems thinking, and storytelling to build solutions for an abundant and thriving future. So, very happy to have you with us, Itika ji. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for such a sweet introduction. Namaskar, everyone. My name is Itika, and I'm here on behalf of my entire team of Studio Carbon and of Dungse to present the work that we've been doing in cow dung over the last 2 years with Dungse. I have a small video just to give you an overview, and then I'll just take you through a presentation of our journey and how we have approached cow dung as a value-added material for the cow economy. And I'll try to keep it not very long so we can actually spend a lot more time on questions and answers. With that, thank you so much again for both the Anandi Foundation and for Crest for this opportunity to allow us to share these learnings. With that, let me just share my screen. Let me know if you all see my screen and if you also hear the audio. I'll just start the video now.
What if we build our homes with materials that are not mined from the earth or taken out from felled out forests?
Amar, do you hear the audio as well?
Yes, both audio and video.
Perfect. So I'll continue.
What if the materials we instead use are affordable, are bio-based so they are actually degradable after their lifetime, and are available locally around us? One such material available in abundance around us is cow dung. With the 1.6 million cows of the Dutch dairy industry, we produce close to about 76 million metric tons of cow dung every year. That's about 36 million Teslas piled up one on top of the other. Yeah, it's a lot. While a lot of this cow dung gets composted and used as manure in the farms, close to about 50% of it still remains unused, creating the problem of greenhouse gas emissions. We saw an opportunity with this material and started tinkering with it about 2 years ago to reimagine the possibilities of using cow dung to see what future materials and products we can make with it. And that is how Dungse was born. Dungse is a material design and innovation company that works with cow dung as its base raw material. We've developed close to about 18 potential composites with Dungse. Each of them hold anything between 50 to 80% of cow dung clubbed up with other bio-based and man-made materials. These composites are very similar in their properties to their traditional counterparts, like concrete, wood, even ceramic. They can be used for potential applications of insulation, of acoustics, of also hydrophobic applications. But most importantly, these samples are way lighter compared to their traditional counterparts. Dungse has received a lot of interest and validation over the last 2 years. We've presented it to people at the Dutch Design Week, at Architects at Work and the Material District. In the last month, we even signed our first partnership with Europe's leading birdhouse manufacturer to replace their product range of about 200,000 birdhouses that they produce every year with Dungse. We're reimagining their products to be more sustainable in the future while using their existing manufacturing techniques. These products with Dungse are expected to hit the market early next year.
Building birdhouses is just the start of our vision of disrupting the construction industry using Dungse. The building and construction industry is responsible for close to 40% of the greenhouse gas emissions in the world. Most of this is produced by mining raw materials. So the industry is looking for new technologies and materials to make the industry future-ready in every way. Building methods are moving towards 3D printing, which makes construction faster, flexible, without waste, and modular. So businesses like Brel BV, for example, are already using this technique to make objects for public spaces, but also use it for making facades for buildings or for houses. We are looking for technology partners, somebody that has a 3D printer we can use. And second, we are looking for a space to work and to do our experiments. And third, we are looking for experts which has the knowledge of developing a material into a printable mortar. Let's collaborate for the built environment of the future with SHIT.
So that was a pitch presentation that we had made to a few investors about 6 months ago. And I wanted to start with that just to set the context of where and how much can this business grow. As I take you through our journey of Dungse, I'll start with answering Umaji's question in the chat itself. Umaji, yes, there's no plan at all of exporting dung from India to Europe or anywhere for that matter in the world. The way we envision and we're currently establishing the business is to actually have local cow dung in any part of the world to be used to make local materials for that part of the world. Our inspiration and applications vary from each region, but the idea is to completely decentralize use, application, production, everything. Let's jump with that into the presentation itself. So Dungse, as we say to the world, are basically cow dung composites that are being developed right now to enhance everyday life, life not just of human beings, but in general of all forms of life in nature, because environmental impact was the starting point for this project for us. We started about 2 years ago with the dung problem. For all of us who know and for all of us who don't, cow dung specifically, because we're based in the Netherlands, is a serious environmental hazard right now. Netherlands is a very small country and it has close to about 1.6 million cows in just the dairy industry. The other industries of in livestock, whether it is for meat or otherwise, we're not even counting those numbers yet. And with 1.6 million cows, we are actually talking about 76 million metric tons of cow dung that's produced every year. And in that cow dung, at least 50% of that actually doesn't get used up on the land as manure. And there is a specific reason for that, because cow dung is very high in potassium, in potash, as well as nitrates and different kinds of nutrients. When we add excessive of that on our land, we are actually overstuffing the land with nutrients. So the government has rules with how much cow dung you can put on the farms. And secondly, when we have a lot of cow dung that's say mixed with urine, has a lot of water, when lots of it is piled up out in the rains, it starts anaerobically composting away, thereby eventually also releasing greenhouse gases like methane. So the government had been very urgently looking for ways to do something with this excess cow dung, and that was our starting point. I'm born, brought up from India. I'm from Himachal. I've essentially worked with cow dung with my grandmother all through my childhood. So I know the material very well. And that's when we realized that with this material and the indigenous practices in India that we've had with this material, whether it is for firewood or construction, there is just so much knowledge that is lying around about these attributes of this material itself. So what can we really do to take those indigenous practices and actually reinvent them for the future so that we could make sustainable materials with it? So that became essentially our starting point. When we were doing this research of looking at cow dung and studying it, we started doing the research in both the Netherlands and in India. And the idea was to do this research in both kinds of markets because we wanted to understand how much surplus dung we have, what kind of applications will differ between the needs in Netherlands and the needs in India, and also with the kind of breeds that we have between Netherlands and India, how would that affect all this research that we are doing differently? In India, we also had an added incentive to do this research because one, of course, we know that the indigenous practices are essentially dying down. They're not sustained as much in our urban lifestyle with cow dung. So we wanted to see what we can do for that. Secondly, we know this enough with every single time a cow stops lactating, she becomes a liability for the farmer. And with all the cows that we see on the street, with all the mess and the waste that they have to feed in and they're not taken care of, if the cows themselves could essentially remain financially viable for a farmer even after lactation, there was a lot of opportunity for them to be nurtured through their lifetime. And cow dung could become that medium. So with all of these multiple perspectives of the problem, that's when we started actually exploring cow dung as a material itself to see, can we make future ready materials for it that can fight and challenge concrete, wood, ceramic, plastic, all sorts of things. So like I mentioned earlier, the location where we did it was both between Netherlands and India. Even right now, 2 years down the line, we have a team here as well as in India that's continuing to explore opportunities for cow dung as a raw material and Dungse as a company. Like you saw in the video, we're essentially two studios that came together. So Studio Carbon, which is the studio that I run with 8 other team members in India, and Studio Lindy Kafsia, which is run by Lindy, who you saw in the video, so Studio Carbon, of course, comes with expertise in systems design and product design. But Lindy comes with expertise in biomimicry, in how do you mimic nature to basically make products, as well as expertise in construction engineering. So we brought all of these different knowledge groups together to start these experiments with Dungse. Over the first year of our explorations, we landed up developing 16 different composite materials with Dungse. When I say composite materials, these are materials where cow dung is the base raw material. So you'll have 50 to about 80% cow dung in each of these samples you see in the picture. We have used cow dung that is fresh from the farm, so it is still wet and has about 80 to 90% moisture. We have used dehydrated dung, which has been pressed and pulverized, and the moisture from the dung has been removed. We have used dung ash from dung being used as firewood and ash becoming a residue. So we tried using dung in multiple forms to see which is the most viable and useful form of dung to basically make materials with, so that we can actually scale this whole thing up. These material explorations were quite unique because when we displayed this and put it up in exhibitions, some of them look like they're a cement tile. So you expect them to sound like stone, but when you lift them up, they feel like cardboard. We all know dung really well. There are some of them which look very heavy and almost like a big block of tile. But when you pick it up, it's actually almost as light as cardboard. So that's when we started realizing that there is a lot of potential for each of these materials across different industries in the world. All we have to do is really start refining them for production. While we were doing these material explorations of mixing them physically, putting them together, mixing materials and curing them, we tried biologically growing and using microbes to actually nurture and refine the cow dung further to make materials. We even did with natural materials, a lot of chemical compositions and mixtures of cow dung to get different outputs. But in each case, one thing we tried doing was we tried to constantly work with properties of cow dung we already know. So knowing that cow dung, because of its fibers, can probably have thermal insulation capacity. Because of the same reason of its fibers, it may have good acoustics in the room if we create enough, sort of air gaps in the composite. There were a lot of different ways we could use dung in applications directly. And we constantly kept exploring with those existing properties and always using basic machines that we have in any factory, whether it's with drilling, with sanding, with cutting, so that whatever we make can be scaled in manufacturing very easily. Another thing that we did, because when we started making materials, it was very difficult for anyone to imagine what you can make with them. So we also started developing prototypes of products themselves. We made a speaker out of cow dung. So we made the whole body of a proper music speaker just to see how does it sound, does it behave like wood, and get people to start completely imagining something so premium from something as frugal and simple as cow dung. We made bird houses out of it and kept them outside and left them in extreme weathers for like more than a year. We tried making different forms of interior tiles that I could make my facades and walls with, and simple small products like wall clocks or little bowls. These were all explorations we were doing so that we can show it to the world that you can actually make these materials in any shape, in any form that you like, which means that they're very, very versatile. Another thing that we very consciously have been doing in Dangse is to try different techniques of production. So right from, basically molding and moving and preparing different forms of cow dung and composites with our hand, like we do indigenously, using simple molds of containers and actually building the material around that, using a potter's wheel and using the composites to make forms on the potter's wheel like you will with clay, using different molds and clamping them like you do with concrete products and seeing how it behaves. So we tried all of those techniques just to be able to know which one it works on and which one it doesn't. And about 6 months ago, we also successfully 3D printed one sample using the cow dung composite mixture that we had. When I say 3D printing, there are 3D printing machines in the world right now which are able to make houses like we all know, or different ceramic containers. They work similar to a traditional 3D printer, but the extrusion, the removal of the material is slightly different. So we tried that with a machine that makes concrete-based 3D printing products, and actually successfully were able to get one output. It didn't look exactly how we wanted, but we got a product which was intact and very, very strong to sustain and stay together, which means in the future, we could also 3D print cow dung itself into products we'd like. Because we've been around for 2 years and we've extensively talked about, all our learnings, about why we are doing it, about how we want to help the environment, help the farmer earn more income, help industries who want to become sustainable, and basically, like we keep saying, build the future with double quotes shit. It's gotten a lot of people's attention. We were awarded by the Government of India, by the Animal Husbandry and Dairy Department, for value-added products in cow dung. We've gotten awards from German organizations. In the Netherlands, because like I was saying, the problem is a lot. We've constantly shared our story of using our indigenous knowledge from India and, sort of building on that and putting our knowledge of design on that to make new age future-proof materials. So we've been in national news, we've been around in magazines, but the conversation is getting exciting. People are interested to try such materials, to talk about it. And that has been one of our biggest motivations to really continue to do this. These are just some screenshots of recognitions where we've been in business magazines as people working with cow dung. We've been in architect exhibitions where architects are looking for fancy, beautiful, nice to look at materials that they will use in their next projects. And everywhere the response of the material has been phenomenal, because people, when they look at these composites, they can't imagine that it has cow dung in it. That's how versatile the material itself is. To make this, we were not just exploring as designers, but we wanted to turn it into a successful business. So we were actually a part of 2 incubator programs in the Netherlands and in India, because like I said, we wanted to learn how will the business and the whole model change between the 2 countries. So the clean tech incubator program called B-Start in the Netherlands selected us last year for a 1-year program. And in India, we were selected by Startup India to actually be incubated with CCamp, which is another entity based in Bangalore, which works on biotech and bio-inspired entrepreneurship and innovation initiatives. Both of these projects have helped us start to think about Dungse not just an innovation, but a successful business where you understand how every stakeholder in the entire ecosystem will make money, but also bring sustainable value to the world, so that it is not just a financially, but also an environmentally viable business. We, as a collaboration model, and this I'm sharing just for all of us to think about, how can businesses like these be put into the market? We're currently, as a company, offering 3 core expertise. So we develop material recipes. The recipes that you saw were a starting point. We're continuing to refine them. So if a company like the Birdhouse company came to us, they said, can you make one recipe for me, for my birdhouses, and use that recipe in my current machines to make birdhouses? So developing specific recipes for them with cow dung is one thing that we offer upfront to our clients. Because we're also designers, there are some people who say, okay, don't just make the material for me, but also make a nice product with it, give it a nice form, a nice shape, something unique that I can sell, properly. So that product design as an offering is also something that we do. And the third thing, which I think is the most important, even more important than the recipe, is that we actually design for manufacturing. So we work with the engineers of companies, collaborate with them, learn about their production technique, their machines, how do they currently produce, and then tailor the material for those needs successfully so that they can start making their products with Dungse right away on the same machines. And this design for manufacturing has been a gap which a lot of bio-based materials are not able to bridge, which we felt we could essentially help industries do. But overall, we didn't stop here. When we started doing material applications for industries, we realized everything is fine, but how do I ensure that people who are going to be making Dungse materials will have access to cow dung and have access to the correct quality of cow dung, consistent cow dung whenever they need? And that's why we also started working and studying policies in both India and the Netherlands more deeply. In the Netherlands, the policies are a lot more strict with how you can use cow dung for different uses. So we tried to modify our recipes for those legal compliances. We also started collaborating with people who make these dewatering machines of cow dung. So there are these machines that farmers in countries like Netherlands, where you'll have 500, 800 cows on a farm. There are machines which essentially take in cow dung from the farm, dewater it, press it, dewater it, remove about 80 to 90% water from the dung, and the remaining cow dung becomes ready to use for manure or any other purpose. So getting partners like that to ensure that for the industry, the production is viable, that's also something we started taking more seriously as a company in terms of our role. The launching client that I was telling you about is a company called Vivara Pro. They make wildlife products across Europe, and wildlife products will mean bird houses, bee hotels, hedgehog houses. And we started developing one specific range of their bird houses with Dungse. Other than that, we also figured out a very common practice of cow dung in India we've learned from is making seed bombs, making seed balls to grow trees, to grow wild flowers and things like that. So we modified Dungse in a way, learning from basic practices of seed bombs to actually produce seed bombs at scale. So with the current techniques, manufacturing techniques we had, you can produce close to 9,000 to 10,000 seed bombs in an hour, which means if we were to, as a company with all the excess dung that Netherlands had, if they had to take it, make seed bombs and start reforesting and doing afforestation around the world, that would be a very successful use of cow dung, for example. So Vivara is someone we're doing that with. Similarly, another impact collaboration we're in talks with, this hasn't gotten ready yet, but it's in conversation, is with Nestle India. So big companies like Nestle who work with farmers directly and have cooperatives that supply milk to them, for example, they have been taking a lot of role as a company, as a big global company, to say, how can I support smaller local communities that I work with better? And we worked with them. We built out a pilot project with them, where through the learnings we have with Dangse, we are going to try and do a pilot with the farmers of Nestle in Haryana, so that the excess cow dung that the farmers are currently producing can be modified and built into composites of Dangse, and the entire ecosystem of building these materials and selling them and production is going to be led by the self-help groups of women that are there locally, helping them also with micro entrepreneurship opportunities. So we're still waiting because of COVID. This got a little delayed, but it's in conversation. And the last and the most important thing that has helped us reach where we are as a company is our research partners. So Wageningen University is a university in the Netherlands, and it is all around the world known as one of the primary universities for agriculture and bio-based materials and sustainable futures. So they do a lot of research as a government university in this sector. We actually submitted for an application with them to the government of Netherlands to do research on Dangse further, to do testing on the materials, to understand the materials further and the market to sell it further. We got a grant from the government of 40,000 euros to actually do this research for a year. So this research with Wageningen is currently going on, and we'll have the results of this ready by the end of December. With having a research partner like this, we not just have industry people like farmers and companies with us, we have our own knowledge of design and the material with us. But now we also have scientific experts who can use all these knowledge that we've built through practice to actually make it more viable and understandable and scalable for the future. In general, if I was to put it all together, our aim with Dangse has been to build successful ecosystems. And when I'm saying ecosystems here, we're talking about everyone from the dairy farmer and their needs, from local economy at a village, district, state level, from industries who want and need local materials to make themselves more sustainable, to the environment and our responsibility of consumption becoming towards a more sustainable future also important. We want to build Dangse in a way where it is working with all of them and all of their needs together. So it's truly a sustainable and a systemic business. In terms of our vision for the impact we want to make, we're talking about trying to work in a business model where we impact at least 4 different sustainable development goals. The goal of climate action, of course, because we are using excess cow dung. The goal of decent work and economic growth, because we want decentralized production where local economies and local businesses can thrive. The goal of responsible consumption, where we as individuals start using materials in our day-to-day lives and homes that are more sustainable. And finally, the goal of more innovation in industry and infrastructure by things like 3D printing and technologies like 3D printing with frugal and natural materials like cow dung. In general, if I had to sum it up in one picture, this is our future vision for Dangse. Dung as a raw material for us as an inspiration started from indigenous communities where we've all grown up in, using it in our day-to-day lives and our local ecosystems for our needs of building, fire, and everything else, to then reimagining the same kind of applications, but with a twist of future-proofness, with a twist of today's technology and everything that those technologies allow us to do, to actually build premium, high-quality lifestyle, high-quality living, but all of that with local materials in general. That's everything I had on the presentation. I'll stop here, and I'd love to answer questions that all of you may have. Or feedback, actually. We'd love to also hear any form of feedback.
That's an excellent vision, Ithika ji. We are really inspired. The way you have approached it in a systematic researching way is very key to scaling up. And so your approach is really an inspiration for us at Anadi also. Right. I think you can see the chat questions of all the users. Yeah,
Yes.
you can pick
Okay.
and choose which are more relevant, start from a bit earlier.
No
and then-
problem.
Yeah.
I'll do that. So I got one question, from Mr. Satyanarayanji. I think it came only to me. The question was if we had actually tried both Jersey as well as indigenous dung to be used. Satyanarayanji, we tried with both, because a lot of times when we were looking for dung to do our experiments, we couldn't control which cows we were getting it from. So we did explorations with all forms of dung, and that's why in which form to use dung became a very important question. So when we use dewatered dung, when I say dewatered dung, it's dung that's been pressed so that at least 80% or 90% of its water has been released and collected. That form of dung, no matter which cow we were getting from, was yielding almost the same results in terms of our composites. We had to tweak the recipe a little bit, of course, but in general, in the end, what we were getting were very similar. So that's when we got the confidence that our composite recipes can work with both forms. But frankly speaking, the dung we got from indigenous cows. In Ahmedabad, we used to get dung when we used to test it from a temple that had cows that they used to nurture. And of course, the quality over there was very, very premium and very different. So it did work better. And one thing we've been telling farmers, even over here, as we are trying to build this business, is that if they can keep their cows healthy, feed them more grass, less protein, then the quality of dung that they'll produce will be much richer, and we can probably give them better rates for that dung also. So building an incentive for them to keep the cows healthy in the end. But I hope that answers your question. We had another question from Manora ji saying cow dung is now seen with many uses in addition to manufacturing. From value return to the cow owner's point of view, do the application of dung on farming materials give better returns than farm applications towards manure and pesticide? Wonderful question. In short, yes, it does. The idea of Dungse was to make a value added material, a material that can give better ROI, better return on investment compared to traditional practices like composted manure that we use in our farms. One thing we are constantly saying in Dungse is all the calculations that you saw is with cow dung that is surplus. So cow dung that is over and above the dung that I have used as manure or that I'm allowed to use as manure in my own farms. So anyways, the extra dung is a menace. The farmers in the Netherlands, for example, pay money. They pay close to like 5,000 euros a year. A small farmer will pay that much amount just to get rid of the dung, the surplus dung from the farm. So not having to pay that and in return earning on that surplus dung is a straightforward value add for them, which is better cost than manure. But what we are also trying to do is for some farmers who may be interested to process the Dungse material on their farm itself, they may actually be able to earn much higher returns on this, almost making a micro production facility. So that's a larger vision that we have for it. Let's see how it goes, but that's something we would like to do as a company in the future. I'll go to AK's question, which says companies like Nestle are industrial agriculture with cows that are not indigenous as well. We shouldn't let them greenwash with such initiatives. So I would be wary of such associations. I completely understand where you're coming from. And a lot of times it's a dilemma for us to say what is ethical and what is not. When we had reached out to Nestle itself, we had actually done a very, very extensive research with the farmers for like an entire week to basically understand the challenges of the farmers themselves. So in Haryana, currently what Nestle is doing is they have a lot of small, medium and large scale farmers. And the farmers have mixed breeds of cows, actually. They're not just Jersey cows or like a mixed breed individually, but they have a lot of different breeds because each farmer, depending on the breed they have, provide 1 liter to a few hundred liters of milk to Nestle every day. And for them, some of the pictures that I showed you were from Haryana, where for them, a lot of surplus dung has been a menace. So they just dump it in nalas outside the village. And all that is doing is it's adding to the excessive nutrients going in the water table and soil. And in the long term, it is going to hamper, the quality of soil and the kind of crops that they're able to grow over there. The other thing that was also happening over there was the same issue of methane, where a lot of it is just getting piled up. Nobody cares. You'll see the center of the village, one big which was something that was meant to be an akhada, which just has piles of dung drying up on its own. Nobody's catering to it. And because dung is just lying there, it has become a common spot of disposing any form of waste. So it's a very, very unhealthy ecosystem. And that's where we felt that because we're going to be working directly with farmers and the incentive is for farmers, the only role Nestle will play is to actually loan or help farmers do initial small investments for basic machinery if they have to produce Dangse, but the incentive will remain with the farmer. So those are the lines on which we're going, and we're very conscious of the way we will measure this impact from both environmental as well as local employability and economy point of view. But overall, I think great point. Thank you for pointing that out. Hello. Anil, I'm not able to hear you.
There are people who are sending in questions to Gary. Would it be okay if I read out to you, Ritika?
Sure. Yeah, I'm not able to hear you very clearly, but I think you said you can read out different questions. Okay, while we
I'll probably help you with the questions.
Yes, perfect. Perfect.
There is one question by Aniket on the average rainfall in my native is 3,400 millimeter. Can I use cow dung in constructing houses? Right. This question I feel is also relevant to our region, though we don't get much rainfall here, but nevertheless, whenever it rains, it's like quite heavy.
Yeah.
So.
The most relevant person to answer this question is going to be Yask, who will present right after me, because that's exactly what he's worked on construction bricks, which are waterproof. But from our practice and experience of cow dung that we've learned, once dung has dried up, I can't tell you from a scientific standpoint, Yask can do that better, but from learning and practice standpoint, we realize once the dung's completely dried up, and if you have the right composite binder in it, it is waterproof. It is a naturally water repellent material. And if you have enough strength in the binder itself, it can absolutely stay intact in heavy rains as well. Netherlands also gets more than about 200 days a year of rain. So this has been a big question for us also to think about. But in theory, it feels like it can. As in when we develop more knowledge on this, I'll be sure to share that on our website and other places. And then hopefully we can build a house for you over there with cow dung.
There's one more question. Is there any time period from a collection of dung to manufacturing or processing? Is there any challenge in storing dung as a raw material that you have?
Right. So when you use, one thing we learned was when you're storing cow dung completely raw without any form of processing, there is a serious menace. The anaerobic composting and the release of methane I was telling you about happens at that stage. So the way that we're trying to get the supply chain tight is that the moment the dung is collected, like produced and collected every day, it goes straight into these dewatering instruments, which are these simple machines you can put on the farm, and you remove the excessive water from the dung. Once that has happened, the dung that you get, which is about 90% dry, storing that for a few days before it is transmitted in bulk in a truckload to a manufacturing facility is more than enough. In general, from my experiments that we've done ourselves, because we do a lot of it literally in our little shed and backyard itself, I've stored dung. I've tried and tested storing dung in aerated containers, in airtight containers, this dewatered dung. And you have no issues of fungus, of smell. It only continues to get composted further because of the biomass in it. But there's no issue with it because there's enough aerobic respiration happening inside the dung. So the shorter we make that time, the better. But there are ways to increase that time gap between raw material to production also.
Maybe I'll read out one last question.
Sure.
What is the likely reduction in cost from the point of view of, conventional materials versus cow dung as a material?
Yes. Again, great question. We get asked that by investors every single day. We have only one case study to actually give you the costs of that precisely, and the case study is with our birdhouse manufacturing client that I had showed you pictures of. With them, currently, with the raw materials that they use is conventional cement. So they basically used to make those birdhouses with conventional cement. With the composite that they're currently using with us, the production cost is the same. The raw material cost for them has been exactly the same as it was for them to use cement and other materials that they were mixing up traditionally. And the only reason that has been possible is because the cow dung was available in the country where they were producing these birdhouses. If we had to transport cow dung from anywhere else in Europe to that production facility, it would have added costs, because the price of dung that you can actually give the farmer for a truckload, you almost land up spending an equivalent amount on transportation if you're going beyond about 500 to 800 kilometers of a circle or a radius. So the key to keeping the production cost down is localized, local material and local collection of material, and that's it. Everything else will just add up to the carbon footprint and costs.
So thank you, Etika, for this wonderful presentation. At least we are personally excited about the innovations that you've done, and we hope to see more and more innovations from you and your team, of course. And best wishes. Yes, best wishes for your entire team. And whenever you visit India, you're most welcome to visit our place. And then
Perfect. I'm going to be sure to do that. What I'll also do is, I couldn't answer a lot of questions, so I've dropped our email in the chat. Sure. If anyone has questions, wants to reach out, we're just always up for even a conversation to share our learnings. Would be more than happy to do that. So please feel free. But thank you again, both Anadi Foundation and Crest, for this chance to share our work with everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Etika.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you, Etika ji, for this wonderful presentation. I think local is best summed up with Etika ji's approach to it. Empowering local resources, local farmers, building up global parameters of research. This is what our symposium is aimed at. Thank you. Thank you once again. Now I welcome Yash Kulshrestha. Yash Kulshrestha is a global fellow and a PhD candidate at Delft University of Technology, TU Delft, the Netherlands. He is conducting research on building affordable, durable, and desirable homes using locally available mud and biological resources.